Hello, everyone. This is BJÖRN from Soilwork, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
All right, hey guys, welcome to another interview here at Sonic Perspectives. My name is Austin Coquel, contributing author and interviewer with the Sonic Perspectives team. And as many are looking back on the year that was 2018, we're looking ahead to 2019 today, talking with the lead vocalist of one of the most brutal and melodic metal bands on the planet today, from the band Soilwork. I'd like to welcome the one and only BJÖRN Speed STRID. Hello, sir. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we're wrapping up 2018, like I just said, and you're currently on tour with your other band, the Night Flight Orchestra, as we speak, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and you're in Prague today. So we spent so much of the year focusing on Night Flight, but now we're just a few weeks away from the highly anticipated new Soilwork album, Verkligheten. So for our listeners who might not be familiar, Night Flight is influenced by like 80s pop and AOR, while Soilwork is obviously a bit heavier. Is it strange to be doing interviews about much darker and more serious artistry with Soilwork, and then going out and singing "Turn to Miami" every night right now?
It is kind of it is a bit of a weird situation, a little bit of a Jekyll Hyde situation, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. Somehow the switch is easy, even though it's maybe not ideal, to be on tour with the Night Flight Orchestra and then doing press for Soilwork at the same time. But then again, I mean, both bands are so close to my heart, and it really is sort of representative of who I am and sort of what I like, and I think it has done a lot of good things. For me, I feel very balanced musically, and I don't have to be, I've said this a million times in interviews, but I don't have to be Lou Gramm and Tom Araya in the same band anymore. So yeah. I think there's a balance there, and I think ever since we started the Night Flight Orchestra, I think Soilwork has become gradually more extreme again, and more sort of melancholic and darker, and that's how I want it to be, and I think with this new album, we definitely have something really interesting, and I think it's an album that really sticks out too, in the metal world, something that's really hard to do.
Yeah, and it seems like Verkligheten seems like it sees the band going to darker places than usual, and as it says in the press release, the band is getting older, the world isn't quite so rosy as it might have once been. So what sort of inspirations led you guys to create the music on the new album?
I mean, we did a lot of touring for The Ride Majestic, the previous album. We did 3 North American tours. We did 2 European tours. We did South America. We did Japan, Australia, and all the festivals. And it was pretty intense. And I guess it sort of left us drained a bit in the end, which is understandable. And I don't know, we needed some time off and sort of slowly approach a new album. And I think this new album just really came to us. I mean, it is pretty dark, but it's also, as usual, I mean, lyrically it's existential, but it's also sort of full of sort of social realism, but also a lot of escapism as well, which creates a really interesting contrast, and Verkligheten means reality. So I think it also comes with age. You sort of have to face reality, but you also have to find new ways to escape it somehow. So yeah, but it's a very, it's a pretty melancholic record, but it's also very empowering and very extreme. Yeah. So it's
got
nice
good
balance.
groove and everything. It's a good like driving album at the same time too.
Yeah.
If you want to turn off your brain and just like headbang while you go down the highway, you're good there too.
Absolutely.
So online, you said this album is almost like a soundtrack to Swedish suburban anxiety. A very good friend of mine, guitarist in several Swedish bands, he once told me about the law of Janta, or some people might know it as tall poppy syndrome. Is that something that you guys encounter in Soilwork? Is that something you experience in your musical lives?
Not so much anymore. I mean, maybe Sweden is a little bit of a different place nowadays, but we all grew up in the 80s, and there was definitely, a big portion of Jante, surrounding you. And sometimes it can be healthy, but for the most part, it can be just, I don't know, can be really sort of frustrating being around it, and I think I think times have changed a little bit, and Swedes have always been so modest, we never really brag, but people have learned how to actually to be able to talk, sort of say good things about yourself, which was not really allowed in the 80s somehow, and that's the whole Jante thing. But I think I think there's a lot of great musicians, out there, and if you're a Swedish talented musician, and you can also actually, say some good things about yourself, and not brag, but I think then you have a killer package.
Yeah, you can have pride in yourself.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's important,
And it's just crazy to me because so much of my personal library comes from Swedish bands, both prog and metal, and it's just like, does everybody just kind of have to overcome that? It's just, but like you said, I guess times just change eventually.
Yeah, I guess, but because you are sort of humble, it makes you humble, but it's sort of almost like in the wrong direction. It's almost extremities, but then again, then you see kids that are being encouraged, and that's a good thing, but then we also see parents who are completely delusional, and say that their kids, you're like the best in the world, and you're going to be a great star, and this and that. And it's like, and then you tend to get extremely disappointed when that doesn't happen. Yeah. So it keeps you grounded, but there needs to be a balance, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, even here in the States, it's like you see bumper stickers like, I'm the parent of a terrific kid. It's like, oh, shut up. Like, your kid's normal, your kid's average.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being average.
No, exactly.
Yeah, but kind of on the opposite side of that coin, many would argue that you've got one of the most powerful voices in the metal scene these days, and have for 20 plus years. And in my opinion, you use multi-tracking in the studio to amazing effect. Now, as I see metal vocalists from my youth now getting older, like Ozzy, of course, and Phil Anselmo, not only are their voices not what they once were, but they're kind of almost like shadows of their former selves. What do you do not only to keep your voice in shape on a day-to-day basis, but how do you ensure its longevity?
It's a good question. I don't really do anything. I sort of stretch my vocal cords just before going on stage, but I never really warmed up. And there's been times when I've been, really sick on tour. That's really the only thing that can stop me.
Yeah.
And then, I remember this time and I think it was in Idaho, and my voice was completely shot and I was sick. And then I got this, like, I don't know, like a file with like a audio file with like warm up exercises, whatever. And I did that. I was like, oh, well, maybe I should try this out. And it was even worse after that, somehow it's like, it was almost like I couldn't control my voice anymore. It was like all over the place, so I don't know. I don't know. I think I built up a pretty strong, stamina over the years. I try to, work out on tour, but I don't really do anything for the voice because there's so much on the mental side of things as well. It's but so far no problems, and I'm really grateful. I'm still evolving as a singer as well and developing. So it's I don't know. I'm just happy that it still works, and I just turned 40, so it's I'm not that old, but I'm just grateful as long as it lasts. But, I don't really do anything in particular. So.
And the cool thing is, though, I think the metal scene now is accepting that, God forbid something, you can't do the growls like you used to or something. Look at like Jonas from Catatonia or something, where he used to be like a growl master, but his clean voice is so amazing. I think your high voice and your clean is so good too that if you had to go that route and you just took care of your actual singing voice, you could still do that as well.
Yeah. I think so. And the screamy voice too is a part of me. It's so natural for me, and I found a way to not, kill my vocal cords when I do it. And I don't know. I believe in like building up a strong falsetto. That's it might sound weird, because I'm not really in a Bee Gees tribute band yet. So I don't know.
Well, but
But I mean, I think that's the key, because if you build up a strong falsetto, I think that's the key
yeah.
to all kinds of singing. If you
I
ask
mean,
me.
yeah, look at Night Flight. Like the album starts out with like a Bruce Dickinson air raid siren vocal, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and that's I think what I love about Night Flight too, that it is like this poppy AOR thing, but like you can hear the metal in your voice on it, It's like you've got that
yeah,
like oomph. So, yeah, it comes
yeah,
off well.
yeah.
So going back to Soilwork, obviously, Full Moon Shoals is the lead single on the album, and it's a
Mm.
great example of the sour and sweet that I think many metal fans crave, like me, and I think few bands really master. Maybe like Amorphous, you guys, Seven Dust, handful of others. But some comments I've seen online say it's maybe too melodic, too influenced by your work with Night Flight, and yet you're
Mm.
doing high throaty screams before we even get to the chorus. So, like, what do you say to
Yeah.
fans who might hear this single and worry about too much of a stylistic shift, especially before they've even heard the whole album because it's not out yet?
No, I think it's because now people actually have a reference. Because I've done these things a lot of times before, even before we had the Night Flight Orchestra. But I understand now that people, as soon as they hear something, that might stick out a little bit, it's like, oh, that's Night Flight. That's where it comes from,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's because it exists, it's a reference now. But I mean, to me and David, who's in both bands, I mean, it's completely different things, And of course, I mean, you take your sense for melody with you wherever you go. So I mean, of course, it's going to cross over here and there, but for us, it's still very, very different things, And I mean, I can maybe understand it a little bit, on Full Moon Shoals, or but then again, it's a very diverse album, and there's some extremely, intense stuff and extreme, possibly some of the most extreme stuff that we ever put out, I would
Yeah.
say, So it's a very diverse album, and it's all gonna make sense when people listen to the whole album. So I'm not worried at all, and I don't
Yeah.
think people should be
I
worried
agree. I think
either. So
yeah, and when there's so many bands who do like a stylistic shift and everyone loses their minds and
yeah,
now everyone assumes every other band is going to do that too. It's like it's fine, just wait, the album's going to come, you'll be fine.
yeah,
But
they'll be fine.
yeah, well, speaking of Amorphous a minute ago, you guys are going out on a European tour with them when the album is out, along with the amazing Russian band Ginger and Nailed to Obscurity as well. So it sounds like a pretty amazing night to me. What do you think about that lineup for the tour?
I think it's fantastic. It's about time that we tour with Amorphous as well. So it's a co-headline tour. I mean, I think they're the bigger band in Europe, but I mean, I think we have a lot of sort of common, sort of musical influences and vibes. And I think, I've been a fan of Amorphous ever since I was like
Yeah.
13 years old. I've been following their career, and Tales of the Thousand Lakes was one of the soundtracks to my youth. So I'm very excited. We toured together before, but that was I think it was 12 years ago or
Yeah.
something.
God.
So yeah, I love their new album, and I think it's a perfect bill. And then, like you mentioned, also with Ginger and Nailed to Obscurity, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with Ginger, especially her vocals are just insane. I mean, she
Yeah.
might be the best female growler I've ever heard. So
Yeah, she's really good.
yeah, and Tommy Oateson from Amorphous joins you guys on Verkligheten. My first exposure to Soilwork was when you sang opposite of Roy Kahn on Camelot's Poetry for the Poisoned album back in
Oh,
2010. You did the music video and everything. So
Yeah.
you're very busy with other bands. And so what have been some of your favorite collaborations, and who's out there that you still want to work with?
Yeah, I do some stuff, some session work when I'm at home and we have breaks. I get approached from bands all over the world. It's like Russian bands and Colombian bands and Australian bands. So I've been doing a lot of different types of stuff,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. And I think that's also the reason why, I'm still developing as a vocalist, and I've kept my vocal cords warm, so to speak. And one of my favorites would be the Colombian band who approached me and asked if I wanted to do a tribute to Jimmy Jameson and do "Burning Heart."
Nice.
Survivor from us, made famous in the Rocky movies, I guess.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to to do the cleans, and it's like, oh, I always wanted to do that, and now I'm going to do it with a Colombian band. It's kind of a, yeah, it's really cool, and it turned out really cool. So people should check that out. It's called STRID. It's the name of the band. So yeah. So cool. That's one of my faves for sure. And then also did that with the American band Earthside, a song called Crater, which was probably one of the biggest challenges I've done as a vocalist.
Yeah, that's a fantastic album. I mean, like I just mentioned Seven Dust a minute ago, Lejean Witherspoon is on that too. So it's a great diverse, and the guy from Tesseract I think as well. So it's a great lineup on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so to be honest, you're the only remaining original band member in Soilwork now, and I mean, you started this band back in the middle '90s when you were barely out of high school. So, I mean, it's been 4 years, give or take, since the last album. You guys said you took some time off and everything. So, what keeps you going with this band that really, when you look at it, it's been your life's work? What keeps you doing it?
Well, I think it is really about the music in the end, that feeling you get when you write a song for Soilwork and find that perfect balance between, melodies and intensity and the atmosphere running through it. It's still such a great kick, It might not be as fun to travel and tour as it used to be, but, I'm still having fun on stage, and I mean, there's been a bunch of lineup changes in Soilwork, but I also think that it has actually been something good for us, especially when, David Anderson and Sylvain Coudray came into the band right before The Living Infinite, and that was a crucial album for us to make. It was an experiment. We definitely gambled there, because it was after Peter left the second time, and David and Sylvain came in, and we created this beast of an album, and I think that was something that we needed to go through in order to sort of rediscover ourselves.
Like a trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly. And because, I mean, before that, I was sort of losing hope, to be honest. Peter jumping off the second time, is this really worth doing? And then somehow, something picked me up, and I picked up the guitar again, and because I am a guitarist from the beginning, I really became a singer out of coincidence. But I had not played guitar for that many years and been really focused on vocals. But for The Living Infinite, I picked up the guitar and managed to write a bunch of songs, and that was also a great kick in itself, So something happened there, So I think that's it's a great lineup, and we still have the feeling of that we're able to do whatever we want musically. There is this sort of liberating feeling within the genre of metal, and I think we're one of the pioneers that keep on releasing sort of groundbreaking music, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I think we have this special sound. For sure.
Yeah. Well, and along the same lines, you guys have a new drummer, Bastian Thusgaard. And right out of the gate, he's immediately in your face with blast beats right from the onset of the album. Spoiler alert for people who haven't listened, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's he bringing to the band these days, other than like a swift kick in the ass to the listener?
Yeah, I mean, he's really young. He's 26 years old, so I think he was... I think we needed somebody really young coming into the band, and he's been really good with... he's a very organized person. He takes care of the social media and everything. So he's done a lot for the band, and obviously a lot musically as well. And the good thing was that he already started touring with the band for the touring cycle of The Ride Majestic when Dirk left for Megadeth. He was only going to fill in for a month, to begin with, for Chris Adler, and then. Dave Mustaine popped the big question, so to speak, and at that time Bastian was already on tour, so we just continued, and so it was a smooth transition in the end, and then so that was good that he got to tour a lot with us. We got to know him on a personal level, also musically, obviously, and so I think that helped, before, sort of approaching the songwriting for a new album. So he was a big part of it, and he can pull off all the extreme fancy stuff, but also has this classic heavy metal / rock stomp, and I think we also got inspired by that a little bit. So I think he's definitely not overplaying. He's just really, really tasteful playing, and some really extreme stuff, but also like a classic Phil Rudd stomp here and there, you know.
Well, and it's nice when your touring drummer can just naturally slide into that throne to become the permanent drummer, that you guys don't have to go back to the drawing board and start looking again and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the album artwork on the new album is fantastic, like you and I were talking about a few minutes ago. It has sort of a psychedelic, like Mastodon or like Leprous' new album feel to it. And it's colorful, but it's still dark at the same time, if that makes sense. So what was the art design process like for the album?
Well, it was really interesting. We got in touch with this guy, Valnois, who, because I saw this cover of Orphan Land's latest album. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I really like this.
I didn't realize this guy. The same guy. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So I looked him up and got in touch with him, and we gave him some keywords here and there, and he just went crazy. And you know, this was the first draft. It's like, wow, holy hell.
Yeah.
This is not what I expected whatsoever, but I love it, you know, and it has colors that we'd never really had before. And I don't know, maybe it was time for a change, you know, and I think it's a very dramatic cover, but somehow it's also sort of calming in a way. Yeah. And I think it fits the music and the title.
And it'll look really cool on a huge banner behind you guys on stage too, I'll bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it looks like it has two different covers though. There's that one, and then there's like the snake logo too.
Yeah.
So what's the reasoning behind all of that?
I think that was the label who came up with that. You know, they had a suggestion of, you know, sort of capturing that sort of symbol, you know, and with the snake. It's sort of like, you know, the escapism and reality, sort of, that's what it sort of symbolizes. And they wanted to do the limited edition just with the snake, and they put it together, and we all liked it, so why not?
Yeah, and it's something that like high school kids can sketch in their notebooks when they're bored in class.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if they still use notebooks, who knows?
Exactly.
So once the album is out, though, and you guys head out on tour with Amorphous and everyone else, you have some dates scheduled around spring, summer, midsummer. What's your next step in life and with your music after this whole cycle?
That's a good question. I mean, next year is going to be extremely busy because we're going to do stuff with both bands, and I think obviously it's not ideal. But you know, I'm still also very grateful that both bands are doing really well, and things are really exciting, obviously. But I think we're going to try to separate the touring cycles so we can do one band at a time, because at least here in Europe, Night Flight Orchestra has been growing a lot too, you know, and which we didn't, well, maybe we expected it, but not this quickly, you know. So it's really cool, and we just got to know that we're Grammy nominated for the second time in Sweden, and 2 years in a row, and it never happened with Soilwork. It's really weird, the whole thing, but obviously really cool. So I guess that's just it's gonna be, you know, World Cup and logistics basically, but it's gonna be exciting.
So we've got just a couple minutes left before we wrap things up. Is there anything we didn't touch on with the new album, Verkligheten, and you know, anything that you want to talk about? Anything you want to let your listeners know?
Good question. No, I think we covered most. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure we could talk all about, you know, individual songs and get into the meaning behind this one and that one, but, you know, you're out on tour, you got other stuff to do, so, you know, I don't want to keep it too long, but it's a fantastic album, and I mean, I've been spinning it ever since I found out I was going to be talking to you today, and I think it's going to be a highlight in your discography for sure. Cool. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. All right, BJÖRN, well, best of luck with the album release and with the tour. I mean, it's just a fantastic album, and I really think the fans who are on the fence about it, they need to just wait and give it a shot when it comes out next month. It's got a little bit of everything, and honestly, I think it'll bring new fans into the fold as well, and it should please the old ones. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So the new Soilwork album, Verkligheten, is out on the 11th of January from Nuclear Blast. And it'll hopefully make your winter a little bleaker for all the metal fans out there. So BJÖRN, thanks again so much for taking the time while you're out on tour. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. My pleasure. All right. Thanks so much for listening to this interview about the new album from Soilwork. Once again, this is Austin from Sonic Perspectives. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcasts for more interviews, reviews,
news, and weekly episodes of Talking Perspectives. All of those links are on this page. Thanks again for listening. I'll most likely see you on the other side of the new year, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. Stay safe and rock on. Thanks.